The first thing we're going to do is brown our ground beef. I'm putting it in a pan, and you're going to see some smoke, and that's because I just cleaned off my stove with a vinegar cleaning solution, and so I guess it got on the burner, and so that is burning off of the burner. So once that's burned off, I'm going to now add half of the seasoning to the ground beef. As well as half of the onions. And that's one small chopped sweet onion, but you can use any kind of onion you like. After the ground beef has cooked down, I am going to drain it into a strainer to get some of that ground beef fat out of the ground beef. And then once we've drained it, we're going to set the ground beef aside and get ready to brown our steak. So now I'm getting ready to add the steak that I have cubed into bite-sized pieces. And I didn't use the entire 2 pounds of steak. I set a piece aside so that I can have steak and eggs for breakfast. So that's going to be about 2 or 3 servings of steak and eggs. So I'd say I use maybe a little over, just a little over half of that steak, cubed it up, and for the chili, and the rest is left over for steak and eggs for breakfast. Then I am going to add the remainder of the seasonings, as well as the remainder of the chopped onions. And while that's browning up, I did add a little bit more of the fat back in it so that it can have some fat to cook. But while that's browning up, I'm going to chop up the rest of my vegetables, my two peppers. Now that the steak has cooked down, I transferred the steak as well as the ground beef into a stock pot and let it cook together a little bit. Then I am going to add 2 bottles of the Guinness beer. Now this is my first time ever using Guinness. I normally use a Yingling lager. But the original recipe called for a stout, and this is the first time that I've actually seen the Guinness stout in the stores, so I decided to try it. I'm not a beer person at all. I don't drink beer. I drink tequila, I drink rum, but occasionally I'll drink vodka, but I've never been a beer person. So after I opened it and poured it in, I wanted to see what it tastes like, and it's actually not bad. The bottle says it has hints of coffee and chocolate. I didn't taste that at all, but it's not a bad beer. It may be something I might be interested in drinking, but I don't know. We'll see. I've got the leftovers in the refrigerator getting cold now. I did end up, however, adding a third bottle after this had cooked down, because I guess I let it cook down a little bit too much and there was hardly any liquid in the pot. So I did end up adding a third beer to this. So after we've added the beer, we're going to let this cook down for about 30 minutes. And after about 30 minutes, we'll be back. So here we are back. Probably about 45 minutes later. I let it cook a little longer than I needed to. And just so you know, guys, I'm not cooking on that little small burner. I'm actually cooking on the larger burner right next to it, but my camera angle couldn't get to that. So that's why you see it on that little small burner. But I just added my black beans, and I rinsed my black beans before I added. I don't like the black color that's in the black beans in the can, so I rinse them before I add my black beans to anything. The kidney beans has chili sauce in it, so I didn't rinse that because I wanted the chili sauce, but I do rinse my black beans. After adding the black beans and stirring them in, I added my chopped up poblano peppers and jalapeno peppers. And then I'm going to add in my tomato sauce. Again, I don't like cooked tomatoes. Cooked, the actual tomato pieces. Actually, my stomach doesn't like it. So I only stick with tomato sauces and pastes. So, and that is actually a meatloaf mixture. It's a meatloaf tomato sauce, because that was the only tomato sauce I had. And then I used a half a can of the tomato paste, the little small cans of tomato paste. And then we're going to stir that all in, get it all good and blended. And after tasting it, I felt like it needed a little bit of something else. So I added a sprinkle of taco seasoning. This is my thing with seasonings. I don't like to add any seasonings that has salt in it. I rather use my own salt and then add everything else, like the garlic and the paprika and the cayenne. I don't use, like I see people using Cajun seasoning, and they'll put Cajun seasoning along with lemon pepper, and all of that has salt, and that adds up on your sodium. So I only use a little organic Himalayan pink salt, Himalayan salt, or whatever it's called. And then I add my other spices on top of that. Like I said, I felt like it needed a little something. So I did add a little taco seasoning to it after tasting it. So now, after we've got everything added to the pot, we're going to let it cook for about another 30 minutes. It should totally, after you've added everything, the total cooking time should be about an hour to cook the meat down, and then another, or 30 minutes for the meat to cook down, and then another 30 minutes once you added your beans and your peppers. And like I said, I did add a third bottle of beer before I started adding everything else. Before I started adding the peppers and the beans and the tomatoes, I did add a third bottle of beer. So I will see you back in another 30 minutes and show you what the finished product looks like. So we're back. It's been a couple of hours. It's already cooled. The chili's already cooled, and as you can see, it's nice and thick and chunky. And I'm going to use this chili not only for just a nice bowl of chili with cheese and sour cream, but chili cheese fries, nachos, chili cheese hot dogs. And I've also bagged some up to put in the freezer for another time. It'll last for a couple of months. But I'll be back with another video for the guacamole.